Hi, happy Tuesday. Back with the Friendship War. Let's go ahead and get started. We are on Chapter 10, Bitten by the Button Bug. Before I even find a seat on the bus Friday morning, the boy from yesterday, the one with the phone, gets right up in my face, talking fast. Those buttons, the red ones you gave me, you got any more of those? I found some really big green buttons, and I'll trade them for some more of those red ones if you want to. What do you say, huh? You want to trade? Let me sit down first, okay? I live pretty close to school, so the bus is nearly full, and as I walk back to look for a seat, I'm in the middle of a massive swap session, with kids calling to each other. I've got 15 little white buttons here, perfect for making a bracelet or something, and I'm looking for buttons made of pewter. Anybody have pewter? No pewter, but I've got really nice brass ones. Brass? Does it have an eagle on it? No, it has a globe. I'll take it. What do you want for it? What do you got? I'm looking for some of those U.S. Navy buttons, the kind with the anchor. Pewter? Who's looking for pewter? I am. Phone boy is still with me when I sit down. So those red ones, you have any? First of all, my name is Grace. What's yours? Chris. How come you want more red buttons? That color? It's really rare. I've got my eye on a couple of Coast Guard buttons, but I've got to get some good ammo before I try to make a trade. So I was thinking that 2 big green guys ought to be worth 8 of the red ones. What do you say? Hey, I want some of those red ones. Look at these yellow buttons. Fantastic color, right? It's the boy who was joking about the button police yesterday. And the 4 yellow buttons he's offering to trade, they're mine. Some of the buttons I gave away from my tray at lunch on Wednesday, which means he must have gotten them from someone else who was at our table. Except, really, those buttons could have already changed 5 or 6 times. The driver slams the bus to a stop and waves some cars past, and she stands up and yells, "Get in your seats and stay there. Any more moving around when the bus is rolling, and I'll call the school and have the principal meet us at the curb. You've got that?" Everyone sits down fast, and there's a lot of nodding, and it's quiet. But the moment the bus moves, the yelling and the trading picks up again, with kids sitting now. The boy, Chris, hands me 2 green buttons. Nice, huh? They're very large, at least 1.5 inches across, and there's a carved design on each one, sort of a notch on the front that cuts across the 2 holes. Hold them up, he says. See how the light comes right through? Almost like glass or something. Really great buttons. Even though I have so many buttons, I haven't seen any like this pair, not yet. And all of a sudden, I really want them. But without even thinking, I pretend I don't. Yeah, I mean, they're okay, I guess, but 8 red ones for 2? I don't think so. How about 7? And now I've got him hooked. I could trade 6, I guess. Okay, 6, deal. I dig around the bottom of my book bag and hand over 6 of the best blood red buttons. Our deal is complete, and I have never felt like this. Never in my whole life. Trading is so fun. I hear myself calling out, "Who's got those pewter buttons?" "Back here, I've got 3. Pass these up to her. It's a girl 2 rows behind me, and I think she's a 5th grader. I studied the buttons, and then I frowned. Oh, they're not the same. That's too bad. Right, she says, but they're all snowflake designs, and every snowflake is different, right? So they're still pretty amazing. I can tell this girl's smart. I say, yeah, but I don't like it when buttons match. Like these cranberry red buttons, I've got enough that somebody could actually sew them onto a sweater. Such a great color. And I pass 3 of them back to her. I think I've got 6, maybe even 7, if you want to trade. These pewter buttons in my hand have a very nice weight to them, so solid. And just like with the big green ones, I've got to own these buttons. I can tell the girl's not sold yet, so I say, I'll tell you what. How about I give you 3 of my red ones for each one of these? Deal? And now this girl knows she's got me on the hook, and she knows that I know that she knows. I think maybe 4 of your red buttons for each one of mine would be better. 12 total. How about that? 12 for 3? Okay, but you're getting a really good deal. I hunt around to find 9 more red buttons, and I pass them back. Even though I feel like I got beat on this deal, I don't care. These pewter buttons feel so heavy, so real. I'm getting low on my red buttons, so I'm done trading for now. But I got 7 other little sandwich bags of buttons in my locker, the ones I didn't show at lunch on Wednesday. I must have a couple thousand buttons there, all kinds. And if I'm careful, I could probably get my hands on every single pewter button at school today. Probably even get... My mind screeches to a halt. What is wrong with me? I've been hearing this hyper little voice in my head, and it's like I don't know who's talking to me. Because standing at the bus stop 5 minutes ago, I was Grace Hamlin, the careful scientist. I was all set to observe and analyze and take some notes. I was going to see if there were any new cases of button fever today. Then I got on the bus, and in 10 seconds I morphed into a wild button zombie. Must get more buttons. A sudden sharp stillness fills my thinking. I look around me on the bus, and now I see what's going on here. It's clear that not everybody has buttons. Probably only about 15 kids are actually trading. But every kid on the bus is totally tuned in, following each transaction and choosing sides, too. There's a cheering section for every trade. Don't do it. Your button is way better than that piece of junk he's trying to give you. And someone else. The kids who don't have any buttons, they wish they did. And by Monday morning, my theory is that most of them will. The thought I had a minute ago, that I should rush to my locker and grab some button bags and keep on trading like mad, I can't do that. No way. Because if I did, everyone would figure out that I've got a massive supply of amazing buttons. They would see that I have this huge advantage, and they would probably think it wasn't fair, which is true, I guess. So I'd better just be an observer here, a scientist, which is not the same as being in the action. It feels more like being a spy. I tell myself that I can do this, and that I can stay outside the flow. I'm going to be scientific. I'm going to watch the events and keep trying to understand what's going on. That's what I tell myself. But as I get off the bus with 3 pewter buttons in my right hand and the 2 big green ones in my left hand, I am so glad that these buttons are mine. And I admit that it might be tough to stay true to my scientific goals, because that feeling of making a great trade, it's a hard thing to forget. Chapter 11. Fashion and Power. When I get to homeroom and look around, buttons are everywhere. But this is not like the wild scene on the bus, because our teacher is sitting at her desk, typing on her laptop. And even before the day officially begins, Mrs. Lang expects everyone will be well behaved and orderly. Still, there are several pockets of intense activity. And who's in the middle of the action? Ellie. Which doesn't surprise me. When Ellie sees me, she waves me to come over, a huge smile on her face. She's wearing her new button bracelet for the 2nd day in a row. Guess what? A lot of kids asked me about my bracelet yesterday, so I made some more last night. Again, not a surprise. First, I sorted all my buttons. That big batch from my mom gave me, I did colors and then size. I mean, I love this first bracelet, but it used up way too many buttons, so if I had to figure out how to make them last, And look, I made 5 of these. She hands me a piece of thin red ribbon. It's about 1/2 inch wide and about 6 inches long, and it's made of cloth, like a hair ribbon. 8 small white buttons are sewn onto it, evenly placed along the length. At one end of the ribbon, there's a sort of loop of heavy white thread. You put it on this way, see? Ellie wraps the ribbon around her wrist, and then fastens it by putting the last button on the end through the white loop on the other, and now I'm wearing a red ribbon button bracelet. Ellie's sewing isn't going to win any prizes, but this bracelet is sweet and simple and very cute. And she helps me take it off my wrist, which she keeps talking. So, I decided that it's my goal for today to trade my bracelets for many really big buttons as I can get. And so far, I've got these 7, with 3 bracelets still left to trade. Pretty good, huh? She holds out her hand and shows me 7 gorgeous buttons, each but the size of the green ones I got on the bus. 3 of them are made from some kind of pale blue seashell. 1 is bright orange plastic, 2 are speckled like a brownish bird egg, and the last button looks like it's made of pale yellow glass with bubbles in it, and it's plastic. So Ellie's plan? It's working really, really well. But she's not the only one with ideas, because this morning, buttons are the new fashion accessory. Following Ellie's lead, 5 other girls have some kind of button bracelet. I think Ellie's new one is still the best. 3 girls have a fancy button or 2 strung onto a cord or a chain and worn as a necklace. 1 girl has sewn a bright yellow button onto each belt loop for her jeans, and Taylor, She's got one blue button on each of her white sneakers, sewn into the laces somehow, and centered about halfway up. It's an interesting look. In the back corner, 4 boys have these strange bunches of buttons hanging from their belts. But I wouldn't call this fashion, more like advertising. And it's working because I walk right over for a closer look. Hey, Cody, can I check out that bunch of black buttons? As I point to a group on his left hip. Sure. He has to pull off 3 other bunches of buttons to get at the one I asked about, which is when I see what's holding them all in place. One of those extra big paper clips, bent into sort of an S shape. Clever. I do a quick count and there's 10 buttons in his bunch, and in the other bunches too. And instead of stringing each button together with thread, Cody used a piece of thin wire. How come you put 10 buttons in each bunch? The wire is from those twist ties that come on bread and stuff, and 10 is about all the buttons you can fit, and still have room to twist the wire shut in a loop. So, who got the idea to use the twist ties and the big paper clips? I don't know, all the guys are doing it. It just happened. Of course, that's not true. Nothing just happens, but it might already be too late to figure out who did the twisted clip thing first. Because it's not like I'm studying some precise experiment in a tidy science lab. This buttons phenomenon has turned into a giant, sloppy, uncontrollable creature that's galloping through the school. I hand Cody his button bunch, and he clips it back onto a belt loop and walks over to talk with Kevin and Noah. Altogether, these guys have at least 15 button clumps hanging at their waist. As I watch, they pull some off and begin comparing and arguing. I've got 8 minutes before the bell, and I sit down at my desk and open a notebook. I need to record some of my observations while they're still fresh in my mind. But out of the corner of my eye, I see Brooke come busting into the room, and she makes a beeline for Ellie, and then holds out her hand. So I drop my pencil and hurry over. Brooke has a beautiful button. It might be the prettiest button I've ever seen. The plastic is sort of a soft, creamy yellowish color, and it's about 1.5 inches in diameter. Big, but not too big. There are no holes through the button, just one small metal loop on the back. And the best part? Cut into the face of the button, there's a pinwheel with lines that swirl out of the center. At least a dozen. In each groove of the design is strained a rich dark blue color. The button looks so old, and it's not worn or damaged. The size, the smooth, the rounded face, the pinwheel design, the strong contrast of the creamy color with its deep blue lines. It's the kind of button that makes you say, I want it. And I know that is exactly what Ellie is thinking, even though she's trying not to show it. Brooke is supposed to believe that Ellie gets to decide what happens next, because that's how it usually is. Ellie's the boss. Except who owns the beautiful button? Brooke. So for the moment, she's in charge, even if she doesn't know it. In a weird kind of way, with that particular button in her hand, Brooke might be the most powerful kid in the room. In fact, that pretty pinwheel button might be more powerful than science itself, even more powerful than common sense, because at this very moment, I can't help it. I feel like I have to get that button. All right, I will be back tomorrow to continue reading The Friendship War. Have a great day.